Connor, you took me hunting for the first time, so I just want to say thank you on the podcast. And
No problem.
it's funny because we went duck hunting the first time, and we shot like what? How many? Like nine or 10 ducks.
Yeah,
It
9
was
or
like
10. There were 3 of us, so we were legal.
He throws that out there.
Yeah, just gotta throw that out there.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, we shot like 9 or 10 ducks. We had a pretty good shoot.
Yeah.
Especially for up here, the time of year, you know, duck hunting gets better later in the year.
Where'd y'all go? Where are you at?
We're just right here in Aledo.
Okay.
Right in a little small farm pond that one of my buddies had access to, and we hunted it one time. And the guy who owned it gave us permission one time. He's like, "You can go out there tomorrow morning, but that's it." And
Pressure.
We never even had a chance to scout it or anything, and went out there and we had a pretty good shoot. Shot a couple greenheads, some teal, a widgeon, a couple gadwalls, you know, good ducks.
Very nice.
And you know, I didn't grow up duck hunting. My dad, you couldn't get him to eat a duck.
Yeah.
But you know, in the last few years, my father-in-law, duck hunts religiously. So whenever I started dating her, we went down to their duck lease and kind of got me hooked onto it. And now, you know, there's something about it. You know, all different types of hunting interest me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do whatever, outdoors, hunting, fishing, hiking, whatever it may be. But, you know, it's something new and it hasn't gotten old yet. Neither is deer hunting, and I've been deer hunting my whole life.
Yeah.
So.
And I wanted to say too is like that first time we went, it was so fun, and we shot a lot of ducks. And the second time we went, I was trying to help you set up the decoys, and I fell in the water.
Nice.
It was like my boots got stuck. I like fell backwards. My ass was soaked. Sock was soaked, and then I got COVID that weekend too.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But then we went deer hunting, and it was the same thing. Like the first time, you know, I was ever in that position. And I shot the deer, and you were a great guide for me and teaching me how to do it. And I was more calm. And then the second time I did it, I missed. I forgot to put the headphones on, so my ears were ringing, and it was just like crazy the contrast in that. And but
that happens. I mean, you can't let the missing get you down, because
it's
you know,
going to happen.
Yeah, it's gonna happen, and it's not necessarily your fault either. You know. I guess it's more prevalent in bow hunting, but missing because the deer moved, or, you know, you try and do everything you can to make sure your gun's on and, you know, the equipment's perfect, because you want to make that clean, ethical kill just for the sake of the animal. But sometimes, you know, things change, and that might have been what happened. You know, I wasn't there, but.
That was a missing link, right?
No, I'm not saying that, because I believe
Kind of threw that out there.
Yeah, you were with my dad, correct? Yeah, see, my dad's. He's just about as good as it gets too, and
yeah, no, I'm just joking.
You know, it happens. I mean,
yeah, I'm not worried about it, but it completely changed my whole mindset on hunting when I first went out there, especially the deer more than the duck. The duck, it wasn't as real as like the deer, like being that heavy thing, like
the mammal, that hair and
blood.
You could relate to it.
Well, and
exactly.
And I think deer hunting, you know, being in Texas and you have feeders and everything like that, you know, most of the time the deer comes out, you know, they walk around, they eat, so you kind of calm down, catch your breath and everything. I don't want to say like you relate to the animal but it's kind of like, okay, you sit there and you watch it and you see everything and how, you know, it acts. If we weren't there, you know, you get a little glimpse into it. I think that kind of makes it, whereas duck hunting, you know, it's like, oh, here they come, boom, done.
It's real fast.
Yeah. Real fast.
And before I had even gone hunting, I was like, I didn't really know much about it, but you know, you hear the stereotypes of like the hunter being the ignorant guy who's like just mad at the world, wants to kill like an innocent Bambi, you know?
Yeah.
Like all these stereotypes are like portrayed out in media and everything, and it couldn't be the furthest from the truth, right? Yeah. Because, you know, for me, when we did that, bro, it was like the most spiritual experience ever. And it came full circle. Like you taught me how to, we cut open the belly, got the guts out, degutted the whole thing, and then de-skinned it, then quartered it, and then processed it. Like it was a full process, and then putting it on the grill and eating it, and like, wow, that was sick. Yeah. When did you first get started hunting?
I think I was 11.
Wow.
I was 10 or 11. I think I was 10. So 10 years old was the first time my dad took me. I had a lease in Mahia, Texas, and my dad hunted different. He couldn't sit for too long. You know, we were going to walk, and he was an old Army guy, right? So we were walking, and we had a giant deer lease in Mahia, Texas, way back in the day. And but yeah, 11 was the first year going.
Wow.
And I remember the first year I remember he went I was like 9. And he went he was gone for the weekend. Dad was gone for the weekend. So I knew what he was doing, wasn't around it. But he had Field and Stream magazines, and we watched Marty Stauffer's Wild America on PBS and all these outdoor shows and hunting shows and wildlife shows. And we watched all that stuff. So I had a love for wildlife, whatever it was. But I remember the first time he got back home, I run outside and I run and look in the back of his truck and there was nothing there. I was like, what the hell, man? You know, what? I don't understand. I didn't understand that you just don't go get a deer, right? You just don't go harvest a deer. It's a little bit of work. It's not as easy as one might think.
It's a lot
of
work.
Yeah.
But then that next year he took me and I was hooked.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I come October, November, I go to rut. My neck swells up. You know, the crows outside sound different. And when the weather changes, when football starts, you start making chili and eating chili. You go deer hunting, man. And it just all goes together.
Dang, okay. I mean, I feel like the same way. You know, I grew up hunting. We've been on the same deer lease. So I'm 26 years old, and we've been on the same deer lease for 25 years. So we would go out every weekend with my dad since we could walk. And, you know, he would go to the blind, and we'd stay home. And then finally, whenever I think I was 8 or 9, whenever I shot my first deer, and you know, that was something we were calling grandparents, you know, saying Connor shot his first deer, you know, tell us the story, you know, everything like that. It's a big deal. But man, ever since then, you know, it's not something that I think a lot of people get to experience, but it really puts in, like you were saying, it puts it in perspective. Like, you know, people can go to the grocery store and pick up a steak and be like, okay, you know, there's no realization of where that comes from. Whereas if you go out and not even, you know, from the moment you get in the blind, but, you know, from August, whenever you start clearing shooting
Starts
trails.
way before deer season.
Way before. And filling feeders and scouting and
Cutting
putting
lanes.
up cameras and cleaning blinds and everything like that. And then, you know, opening mornings here and you go sit in the blind and, you know, you see the buck that you're after that year, but he just kind of runs across the back of a Sendero and, you know, you see him for that split second. You're like, okay, now I'm hooked. And, you know, there's been times where, not this past year, but the year before, man, I was hunting one deer. I saw him for a split second. And I was like, that's it. That's the one for the year.
Yep.
And, you know, I had good deer that I could have shot 5 times. But, you know,
It's what happens.
Dude, you get hooked on that one. And it's like, I don't want to say it's a competition, but it's almost like, okay, here's this animal that has evolved and gotten to this point by being smart and avoiding all predators. How am I going to outsmart him? And it's something unique. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish people could experience it. And that's why, like, whenever we went hunting and I took you, you know, it was almost as exciting for me to see you kill something.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the emotions and the whole thought process and everything you were going through, you know, I did the same exact thing. And I'm sure you did the same exact thing. And my sister and my brother and my dad, and the entire time, anyone who's hunted has that same exact, you know, you pull the trigger for the first time, your heart's going 100 miles an hour and, you know, you're shaking and,
You close your eyes and pull the trigger.
yeah, and you close your eyes and pull
You look
the trigger.
away. You
And,
don't know what's happening.
and then, you know, walking up to the animal, you know, for me, it was interesting because, you know, I've killed countless deer. So walking up to it was no big deal for me. But I mean, I turned around and I'm like, Jackson, where are you? And he's like, stop, just kind of like taking it in for a minute and puts his hand on it. You know, it's kind of like a quiet moment because you never done it before. And, you know, it kind of reminded me like, this is, you know, it's something special.
Yeah.
It's truly something special.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I hope, you know, my kids, I'll take them hunting, you know, and I want to keep going. And it was really cool. I want to get into the whole primal hunting aspect, but just having like 2 months worth of food,
Yep.
You know, and because I eat a lot of meat, so but you can like stretch that out, obviously, but just having that and like not having to like pay butcher box like $600, you know, it's
Look,
crazy.
When you harvest your own animal, everyone's on the organic kick. You tell me what's more organic than a white-tailed deer or an elk or a mule deer, whatever it is that you're eating that you went and harvested yourself. It's not processed in any way. Even if you take it to a butcher or processor, they're putting some fat with it from a pig or a beef fat or something like that to make it so you can cook it without drying it out too much.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't go through all the processing. And you know how it was harvested. You know how it was taken care of. And that's what we do. I mean, I'll kill on average 3 to probably 4 a year.
Dang.
And we'll load the freezer up. And anytime friends come over, you know, we have these great big huge cantina parties that we're very blessed with our friend group. Very blessed, me and my wife. If you're eating meat at my house, if it's not a steak, it's deer meat.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it is, tacos, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
it's venison, and there's just nothing better.
People say gamey, but I love it.
It's
I
all
really
about how
love
you
it.
cook it. It's all about how you
Yeah.
cook it. But you know, it's interesting that you said the organic thing, because that made me realize, like, you know, everyone is organic and everyone's animal rights, and you know, being humane to animals. Shooting a deer with the rifle is just about as humane as it gets,
Yeah.
because that deer has lived its life for, you know, 6-7 years doing the same thing every day.
Free range.
And then free range, it's just going about a normal life. It's eating, it's doing what it does. And then, especially rifle hunting, whenever you shoot that deer, it doesn't even know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Its adrenaline kicks up and then it's dead.
Mm.
And, you know, like that video I showed you of my sister shooting her buck. I mean, she pulled the trigger and that thing was lights out dead before its head hit the ground.
Yeah,
I mean, it's about as ethical as it gets.
that was one of the main things when I first shot, or before I was getting into it. I wanted to have that ethical component to it, where I didn't want to shoot them like in the leg and then, that would be.
If you hunt
tragic.
long enough, that happens, but that's
Mm-hmm.
never the intent.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but it's going to happen, right? It's there's gonna be a day
Mm-hmm.
that whatever happens, your scope's off and you don't even know it, right? So your scope was on when you were at the range before the season and you bumped it or dropped it, you didn't realize it, and you go shoot and you blow his leg off, and now you got to go find this wounded deer with 3 legs.
Yeah.
You know, that's terrible, but it does happen.
That's part of it.
It's part of it.
And so, do you think, you mentioned like you saw that one buck, but there was other ones that you could have taken out? Like, was that something about like?
Well, you know, so our place that we hunt, it's 3,800 acres, but it's high fenced, and you know, we can get into the whole debate of high fence versus low fence, you know, but a 3,800 acre property, they're not going to need a high fence. You know, if you had 100 acres, that'd be a different story, but, you know, we manage it. We're on an MLD, which is a managed land, something, I can't remember what the acronym, but pretty much the state allows us,
A lot of regulations, though.
a lot of regulations, and we have to abide by those regulations and send in numbers and send in harvest information for the deer.
You got to meet quotas.
Meet quotas, and you know, it's kind of like I don't want to say we're employees, but the state pretty much allows us to manage our section of land and keep the deer healthy. We have a biologist coming at the beginning of the year, takes account, says, you know, you have 3,800 acres. This much grassland, woodland, your carrying capacity is, you know, 10 does for the whole place, or whatever it may be, you know. That number varies where you live and how much you feed, and you know, that's a big number. There's all sorts of different things into it, but what we do, and you know why I said that you let bucks go, is you let them get old, you let them get mature, you let them reproduce. And there are some bucks that, you know, we kill as culls because it's not what you want in your breeding population. From an antler standpoint, from a genetics overall, whatever it may be. You know, if you have a 2 5-year-old deer and one of them's a 8-point, real scrawny looking deer, and one of them's a 12-point, you know, big muscular deer, you're obviously going to want the 12-point to keep reproducing. So you're going to kill the 8-point. Now that's another political debate that people wonder if culling's, you know, shooting cull bucks is something that really affects it that much.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of the things that we're really I want to say blessed with in Texas is that we have that option where, you know, the state kind of says, I think Texas, the state realized that nobody cares more for the animals than the hunters themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants the best for the animals more than the hunters themselves. And so we're going to do a good job of feeding and keeping the population healthy. And, you know, going back to that, there was a anthrax outbreak down in, I think it was Del Rio or somewhere around there. And my cousin has a ranch down in Eagle Pass, and they had to kill some absurd number of deer. And instead of killing them, they came in with helicopters, trapped the deer, tranquilized them, and hauled them up to this anthrax property in order to, A, it helps my cousin because they were able to get rid of the deer that they would have had to kill anyways, to keep their numbers stable. And B, it helps this other property out, introduce the deer, keep that food chain stable as well. Wow. So, it's unique.
Yeah, the average person has no clue about any of this.
See, I took that for granted, I think, growing up, because we always hunted and fished.
Yeah.
We would go hunting, dove hunting, turkey hunting. And then when you went fishing, you just jug lines, trot lines, trolling, bass fishing, catfishing, whatever. And you just assume as a kid that all your friends do the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, I'm going hunting this weekend. You know, I can't go do whatever. I'm going hunting this weekend at 12 years old. And they're like, what? You're like, I'm going deer hunting. Like, bro, you don't go deer hunting with your dad.
Looking at you sideways.
What are you, girl? You know, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. You take for granted that everyone gets to do what we do, and it's a gift. It is such a gift, man, to be able to go out there and spend time out and what God created with these amazing animals. And then, if you really like being outside, I mean, there are animals that we have that there's no seasons. We can go out right now and hunt. You know, there are varmints and things like that. So you can stay out there and manage in different ways. It's a year-round deal. So you just got to have a license.